Talk about today about third parties. And I am so excited to be here with two of my favorite coworkers, although I said that last week also, because I have lots of favorite coworkers, but these are truly my favorite coworkers. Um, Brian Myers and Christian Ketchum. Brian, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Teresa. Good to be your favorite this week. I'm Brian Myers. I risk solutions specialist. I work on the federal side. I've been doing this for ServiceNow for about 4.5 years. Kristen?
Yep. Hey, everybody. Kristen Ketchum, Solutions Architect, primarily focused on the risk within the federal space as well. And I think I am definitely Teresa's favorite because she's worked with me the longest. So about 6 years now.
This is true. This is true. And we are here to talk about third-party risks, pressing problems facing global governments. And we've had something exciting happen, or exciting but not good happen, this last week that we're going to be talking about here too. So stick around, everybody. Before we get into it, however, there are a couple of housekeeping things I have to go through. You have been automatically placed on mute, but if you look at the very bottom, you'll see a little Q&A panel down there. We want to make this get your questions answered. We want to make this informative. So please use the Q&A panel and one of us will answer your questions for you. We're going to hold questions for the most part until the very end to make sure we get through all the material. So don't think that we're ignoring you if we don't answer your question immediately live. The session will be recorded and it will be on our YouTube playlist in about 24 to 48 hours. I will be putting in the chat panel the links to the YouTube playlist and also the links to other webinars, because we have some really good webinars coming up as we introduce our new release this next month. After the session, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey. We do appreciate you doing that. It does help us come up with other ideas for webinars that you want to see. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Brian, who is going to kick us off with talking about third-party risks.
Thanks, Teresa. Great to be here, everybody. Appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today. What we really want to talk about today is how we seamlessly embed our third-party risk management into the digital experience that you might already have with ServiceNow or you can have with ServiceNow. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to talk about a little bit about challenges. Teresa alluded to those. Talk a little bit about our platform, then how the third-party risk management application sits in there. Christian's going to do an outstanding demo of TPRM. And then at the end, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about Executive Order 14028 and how ServiceNow might be able to help with that. So with that, I'm going to get started. So, third-party risk management, like all risk management, all compliance pieces, are really about reducing the effect if something bad happens to an organization. And bad in supply chain is being said to get worse. So SNCC has a report out saying we're going to be at $60 billion of threat in 2025. Reversing Labs did their prediction of 1,300% increase over the past 3 years. And of course, we're all living through what happened last week when CrowdStrike had an effect on Microsoft systems. And CISA came out and tried to help everybody. So, we're here, we're actually going through this. And really, I think a third-party risk management system is going to be really critical. And that system, in the federal side, NIST helps us some, CISA helps us some. NIST has the special publications 800-161 and 8276. CISA has put together supply chain risk management, ICTs, where they've developed hardware bill of material and software bill of material that are really feeding into 140.128, how that is, how we can make that most effective. And CISA has also put this leader guide on their website so that you can see, they've given you kind of a way to get through this. But in federal third-party risk management, it's a team sport. So, starting at the top, the administration puts out those executive orders. OMB follows up with directives to agencies and operational division. Departments then consolidate the information coming up from the agencies and op-divs, but also push down those policies. The agencies in op-divs take that departmental policy and have to adjust it and refine it so it fits into their mission framework. At the agency, we've got the first line, second line, and third line of defense, and this is kind of a best practices way of looking at of how you do it. So basically, it's the operations at the bottom, who's using the third party, the risk management in the middle, and then the compliance piece. How do we make sure that we're doing the right things across the organization in that third line of defense? So ServiceNow as a platform is in use across the federal government and a lot of the Fortune 500, Fortune 100, and we think it's all about the platform, that single data model, that single architecture. For our federal customers, it's that FedRAMP high cloud that gives you those set of controls to get you started and ensure that your availability, your security is where it needs to be. But that platform is really about delivering your mission. So being able to meet your mission requirements, to increase your employee satisfaction, their productivity, digitize processes so you can be more effective and add automation all the way across the board. So your mission success is why that platform really is there. And it connects to just about any system that you have across your organization. To that, we add a lot of pre-built and custom workflows, the ability to connect to your customers, to connect to your employees, connect finance, supply chain, and technology workflows. We have a concierge service called ServiceNow Impact that helps you use this creative tool the best way possible. When I'm talking about risk and compliance management, audit management, resiliency, it kind of sits between that very powerful platform and all of the mission space that you have, because there's risk in all of those. There's compliance space in all of those. And there's audit requirements across all of those. And of course, resiliency is what we're talking about today. Like I said, it's a team sport to get into third-party risk management. And, it's all of those things in the green box, the IT, security, customer service, all have a function inside of that third-party risk management. So how do you then connect all of those internal systems and people who need those capabilities with the external providers of those either products, services, or even people that come in and help your organization meet those mission requirements? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So we see the life cycle of the third-party risk management from onboarding. How do we determine that inherent risk, doing those assessments, determining findings, bringing in information from external sources, looking across remediations, being able to report risks and develop the best practices for your organization on this platform. But for us, it's all about workflows. So being able to break these things down into individual bite-sized things that we can then look to automation to really drive forward your processes and ensure that everyone across the board knows where you are inside the process, and you can make those processes as efficient and as effective as possible. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christian, who's going to run us through the platform and help us understand how this works.
Thanks, Brian. Let me go ahead and you guys are able to see my screen?
We can.
Perfect. All right, so let's jump into this demonstration. You are looking at the vendor management workspace. So the workspaces are great for, a holistic view of everything that would be going on with your program and, essentially seeing, at a high level. And this is from the program wide. So all of your third parties that you may be managing, you have access directly to see them. any type of engagement that you guys are doing. So if you have, you know, a tier 1, and then under that tier, you know, there's subsidiaries, you can come in there and manage them from an engagement perspective. Quick actions to your right-hand side, that is going to be everything about workflow. So anytime you see quick actions in ServiceNow, think workflow. It will kick off any of these particular tasks. So you have it right at your fingertips. Below that, we're going to get into, you know, some of the responses that are coming back in, whether that be risk ratings by our third parties or top risk areas. Know that any of these types of dashboards that you see in ServiceNow can be configured based on the data that you want to see. So if you have top risk areas outside of what we're, you know, providing out of the box, you can absolutely add those. And then any type of issues that you may be managing with those individual third party suppliers, partners, that's going to show as well. And then any unknown fourth parties, and then your fourth parties specifically. So all of that, one easy place to go see that. Now, if you notice on the left-hand side of the screen, we have different tabs over here, and we're going to start jumping into some of these. We're going to really get into that initial onboarding piece, but we're going to hit all of these as we go through. So let's jump into due diligence. So the first thing that we really need to do is make sure that, do we even want to do business with these particular suppliers? Now, we've created this out of the box workflow. You're seeing any active new requests come in, and you'll have any new requests. Again, the inherent risk questionnaire that's going to go out, and due diligence, as well as approval process. And then if you bring in that contract risk perspective, and then final review. So again, this is your workflow from a due diligence perspective. Now, this morning I went in and I created one. So you're seeing that right here, this first item. See that I created it over on the right this morning. So let's take a look at what this is going to look like. Now, when I jump in, you can see essentially once you start this, it will, you know, create a risk assessment, that inherent risk assessment that's going to be automatically sent out. Now, where did this come from? So that's where we're going to get into, because this had to come from somebody out in the business that wanted to go ahead and say, hey, I need to do business with somebody. Maybe that's for consulting, or maybe I need new software, hardware, whatever the case may be. We're going to jump into that. So this is where that's going to start kicking off. And then you can also see, as I build my vendors in here, you're going to see that risk intelligence scores. If you have any of these providers, whether it's BitSight, Rapid Ratings, UpGuard, Security Scorecard, any of those, right? You can do those out of the box integrations and then have those scores start driving in. So that's going to help you understand, you know, maybe what type of assessment that you want to send out. So let's see how this actually came in. Now, I created it, but this, again, this is coming from your outside business areas. So if I go in here, I'm going to go in from a business first line, and they're going to go to a portal. Now, that could be an existing service portal that you guys are using, or you may be using the Employee Center, which is what you're seeing here. So that's kind of your one-stop shop. Now, as these guys log into these portals, traditionally, right, people are going out here and they might be creating, you know, hey, I need a laptop or something's broke. That's the type of portal that they would go to say, hey, I need to go in here and I want to, you know, I need a new third party to come in. So you can come in, you can see that that's one of my favorites, right? It's just a service catalog item. So you guys can create these different types of questionnaires based on your requirements. But if I want to go in here and onboard and, you know, a new engagement, right? I could see, is there someone already here, right, that I've been doing business with? Yes. And you also have the option, if somebody's not there, right, to add in that information. So we would go through all of this information, start filling it out, and then who's going to respond to that questionnaire. So these are the things that I did to generate that screen that you had just seen previously. So all of these things can be configured by you, right? They would come down here. You can use same as, it's going to bring information in because we were using as an existing third party. So again, just different types of questions initially that we're going to start asking. So will this third party have access to data? Well, I did a consulting one, so I'm going to say yes. Will they impact operations? No, because they're not going to be working in production, for example. So again, whatever questions you have, they can go out here and submit it and comes back to you. That's where you analyze it from that first screen that we were at and create that questionnaire. Now, what does that questionnaire look like? Let's take a step back. Let's go up here to the top and let's go back to home. We'll leave this for now. Now, again, any of the folks that are coming out to these portals and getting work, they're going to get notifications in their inbox. So again, the first line, they will get a notification that says, hey, they submitted that initial request. You did what you needed to do. And you're going to send them back out an initial questionnaire. So you can see we've got a survey down here, would have taken them to this. So we've got it due in 30 days. We're going to get started on this. And then we'll come through and we'll ask different types of questions. Again, these questions can be based on anything that you guys need. So keep that in mind as you go through. Anything in ServiceNow can be configured. Now, we're not going to go through this just from a timings perspective, but you can see down here that I could submit it. I could save it and come back later because this one has several questions that they're going to go through to be answered. So if we transition back, let's go back to the first line. So that would come back. And then from that area, then you would go into the due diligence part of this. So in that, we're going to take a look at tasks. So you guys are able to kind of see everything within the workspaces. I'm going to take a different view. I could do it right there, right? I could go to due diligence and pick up any of those, but let's take a look at the tasks. And this is this is all of the tasks that you may have going on. So you know that we've got due diligence here. We've got other issues. So again, it's a single pane to see all of those issues and tasks that we may be managing. So if we go in here and we pick up payroll support as an example, right? You can see that that was that existing inherent risk assessment that we did. And now we're going to actually kick this out to a third party. So we have to have those on here. So we would have, added new, which you're seeing here. And if I go into this one here, you'll see that we've got a workflow that's going to be, submitted along with this. Again, can modify that if need be. Notice over in the right-hand pane. So I've got this over here. This can be any information. Again, the right side is where you want to add additional information. Again, just so it's a quick, easy access. So that workflow will be out there. We've not got anything stored on here because we haven't had this information come back yet. And you can see that I've got submit to third party. So if we did submit to third party, what does that look like? Let's take a look. Now, what I did here is I transitioned over to Chad. Now, Chad is our third-party vendor, supplier, or partner, and they would have gotten an email to set this up and say, hey, here's your temporary password, and make sure you're going to have to be forced to change that. And then Chad can log in and Chad can see all of the activity that's going on between you and I. Now, this is the assessments, issues, and tasks. So that's what we're managing out here for Chad. And he can see that he's got any assessments. He can see that he's got engagements coming down here. So there's that consulting one, HR software. So lots of different things that are going on. And anybody that's done this before knows that these questionnaires can be quite lengthy and lots of things going on with them. So we wanted a single pane so all of our suppliers could come in and see that information. So let's take a look at one of those examples. You can see here, Chad's going to see that he's got this assessment out here. He can see a status, questionnaires, document requests, and other things of that nature. And this is what his view is. Now, he also can come in here and he could assign this to other people on his team. So that's a functionality that would be in his settings where he could add additional people to help get these completed. And you can see timelines, what's been answered, what has not been answered, what needs to be submitted. So if I come in here and, open up this monster SIG, then we're going to see the types of questions that are going to be coming, that I have to complete. Now, you also had seen right there, we can ask for SOC 1 or SOC 2 requests, any type of documents that you need to have, that also can be managed. So again, this is an example of a SIG core. So you can see all of the different sections, green check marks, what needs to be done, what's not done, things of that nature, if you want to import this information, as well as notes and comments. So collaboration is big here, as well as this portal, in a sense of most folks are doing this via email today. And, this can be something that is hard to manage. So if I add people to an email thread or I remove people, right, that's where, people get left out. This collaboration piece in here, you can see Chad is asking back to, hey, I'm going to start working on this, but if I have any other questions, I'm going to come back, and I can do this on any of the issues and tasks. So keep that in mind. Again, all easy experience for these guys. So they would submit this and, be done with that, as well as any, again, those different types of SOC requests or other documents that you may be looking for. Now, issues and tasks within ServiceNow. There are issues and tasks everywhere within ServiceNow. And issues, I look at this as, hey, we've got a problem here and we need to get this resolved. So whether that is something that was auto-generated because, we've done something, or maybe I need you to update your password parameters, whatever that is, you can, run that through an issue workflow. You can also do, tasks. Tasks are, hey, send me an updated SOC 2 report. So again, you can define what your issues and tasks are, but again, it's going to give them a clear description of what they're doing, who's it assigned to, add any additional attachments, right? If I need to send that SOC 2 report, boom, I can do it right there. Resolve the issue and it's done. So this is the things that, the third-party supplier can manage from a dedicated portal to get that work done. Now let's jump back over and let's take a look at your view again. So as we go through those particular pieces, let's jump in and see when they submit that back to you. So for that, we're going to go into the risk activity. And the risk activity essentially is going to show any open assessments that you guys may be having, any overdue things, total open issues, any open tasks. You guys can see this assessment by state, issues by state, and tasks. So it's managing all of this work for you and giving you these out-of-the-box dashboards, as well as any assessments by risk ranking. So I could jump in, all these are interactive dashboards, so you could jump in and see those high risks. Now let's take a look at that one that was received. So this is actually the view for you when those assessments would be coming back to you. Remember that report was responses received. So as you can see here, we are in the risk overview. You can see that life cycle that it's went, responses received. Any of the assessment scorecard, this score is being generated by these components over here. So as you get through that, that will generate the score. And then we've got the components. So if you remember, we opened up that SIG core over here. You can see it's still in progress. So all of these other components have been received, so we can start taking action on those, as well as those document requests and any type of questionnaires you want to have down there. You can also see those questionnaires here. Now, these again are noticed as related lists from a ServiceNow perspective. You can have as many as you'd like here in a sense from data, right? ServiceNow has all of these tables, and what information do we need? We can bring those things in. So this example, we've got all of our questionnaires and all of our document requests, so we have easy access, and we might need to add another one, right? So as we start going through things, I might want to come in here and add, another type of, document request that I need. So easily able to do that. And any of those issues that I've been managing, right? We sent this out, we saw that on the portal. So again, that's the view that you guys would have being able to see that, and any other task that would come in or downstream suppliers. And controls, if you were using integrated risk management, that would be shown here as well. Now from there, let's take a look at the risk map. So this is essentially, showing us all of our risks on a geographical map. Again, if you want to start jumping into them, you can, and it'll show you what those rates are. So again, it's just something, a quick, easy access. If I need to get in here and start taking action, I can, right? I can come back over here, pull them up, or those engagements that I might be working at, same thing. And then you always have your toolbox. So I always say within ServiceNow, this is your toolbox, your left navigation. And this really brings everything that, as you kind of go through these components, this is how you build it out. So all of your third parties, whether that is you adding them independently or having them brought in automatically, right? You can see all of those third parties. I can see all of my due diligence requests, if I need to do things, any open approvals, tasks or tiering assessments, all of this is the toolbox, everything that you guys need to make third party work for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Sorry, you caught me off guard. Thank you again. Let me start sharing my screen. We're going to talk about 14028 and how that is going to be really crucial. It is part of what the government is working on right now. The executive order was issued originally in May of 2021, so early in the Biden administration. It has kind of gone through a couple of of iterations of OMB memos, the first in 2022 and the second one in 2023, to push out the requirements to departments and agencies. Really what I believe 14028 was trying to do from a software security look across the organization is to fit in with the rest of the requirements that the federal space has, and to normalize the third party, the software piece of that third party management. In CDM, assets were looked at, but the software asset part really wasn't delved into as much as in 14028. FISMA is a requirement that requires us to do those the A&A process, and then of course the overall reporting that the agencies have to do for FTARA is it can be a trying part of an organization's day-to-day life. Really what we're looking at is two things from a software provider. And a software provider, we'll talk about in a minute, what does that mean? But really an attestation is from a software provider is I as a software provider attest that I'm promising to you that I've done the security work to look across my software and my software is secure. A software bill of material, an SBOM, is totally different. An SBOM is basically the recipe of that software package that's put together. Software is built upon containers of other pieces of software. They may use features from third-party softwares or white label softwares. So when an agency or department is buying software, it's critical for them to know the source of that software, and so they can understand what it might affect. So end-to-end visibility of how those things work together, ServiceNow offers a complete capability to go around this. We're not going to go through all of this, but really what I wanted to get to in this slide is software is in every one of these steps. It is a requirement to monitor, to manage that software as part of your risk management capabilities for any type of project or program that you're bringing onto the agency, so that you can understand that the risks that are being imposed upon you by using that software. And third-party risk management, the capability that Christian was just talking about, is a key part of that. So the CSCRM process across the top, that box that's in the white box is from the NIST documentation around SBOMs, and you can see how they're developing risk management. So for ServiceNow, what we propose to solve for the attestations and the SBOMs are three of our capabilities: integrated risk management, so risk management, policy and compliance, and the third-party risk management you just saw. IT asset management, which includes software asset management. The software asset management then becomes the library for the software that is deployed across the organization. And then security operation, because in our vulnerability response capability, we've actually built a SBOM decoder. So we're able to pull in SBOMs directly into the platform and evaluate those for vulnerabilities, but we can also bring those into different parts of the platform. So when Christian was talking about her the third-party risk management, she was talking about all of the third parties in her libraries, and that's in the yellow box here, because as agencies, you get software and services from a whole bunch of different places. A third party that's supplying you directly on one project may be a fourth or fifth party on another one, where they're providing services or to another to provide to you on a different project. And what I've done on this slide is we're looking at all of the different components of what is required in order to do to bring in that attestation and to bring in that SBOM so that you can meet the 14028 requirements. And it all starts with policy and compliance, being able to establish the policies and controls. If you remember, we said those policies, the controls, I'm sorry, the policies will be coming down from the department level down to the agency and down to the program. So establishing those policies, controls, whether it's an SOP at the program level or up above a policy statement. We use software asset management as that repository for software inventory. We can differentiate using that initial request that Christian went through by system, by criticality, what's important. And that really drives us towards determining the risk appetite for using that software. So as you're bringing that software on board, you're really doing a risk appetite assessment. You're saying, how much risk am I going to accept with this software? From there, we bring everyone into that software, that third-party library. So we can bring all of the providers, the builders, the users, the contractors into that third-party library so that you can see how they're interweaved as in your organization. The assessments, Christian went through an assessment. They're all template-based, so we can ask for one of the attestations. We can ask for an attachment of the SBOM so that we can get that out to the third party, to the correct third party, so that we can have that automated communications, so we can send that request out. We can bring that information back in with just the limited number of human touches required in order to bring that in. From our vulnerability response, I mentioned, we've got the ability to bring in those SBOMs and import that and bring that format in so that we can then use it across the organization. So now we know what SBOM is in which one, in which area, what software is being used in which project. Now we can finalize that risk assessment. And then finally, the last step is to monitor for compliance. So how are we going to maintain compliance against this complex capability of bringing these SBOMs in that are always changing, these attestations that might change occasionally, and bring it into a system where it's usable to your users and you're able to automate the communications back and forth to the third parties, the third, fourth parties. With that, I'm going to ask if there are any questions and turn it back over to Teresa.
I don't see any questions, but I know this was amazing. I promised this was going to be a fantastic webinar, and it absolutely is a fantastic webinar. Thank you all for joining us. Brian and Christian, this was extremely informative. It was very timely. A lot of great information. You all can follow up with us on the community. We do have a link to the community here. You can check out our products on our risk site. You can watch this recording again or share this with your coworkers. It's out on the YouTube playlist within 24 to 48 hours. And in the chat, I've not only put a link to the YouTube playlist, but also to register for additional webinars, because we have, again, a lot of them coming up specifically around our new release that's going to be coming out next month. And we also, if you are not on our community blog, you should be, because we do have one that lists all of our events throughout the year, so you can plan ahead. And with that, I really want to thank again, Brian and Christian. Really appreciate your time, your wisdom, your knowledge. And I want to thank all the people that joined us today, and I hope to see you all again in the future webinar.